The Big 12 strikes back. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis, not because of me, but because of you, your contributions, your engagement. Leave those comments and questions there in the live chat. Give me a call. The call-in link is in the chat as Kansas downs Illinois tonight, 34-23. Not much of a game, although Illinois made it somewhat interesting in the fourth quarter and put a scare into the Jayhawks to a certain extent, but never really was the game in doubt after the Jayhawks proved to be much quicker, much more multifaceted on offense, certainly had the better quarterback, and just the exciting team and coached by an up-and-comer, and he's already proven his worth in a 6-win season for the Jayhawks last year. Of course, Lance Leipold, formerly of Buffalo of the MAC, where he did a fine job there to, of course, earn his elevation into the Power 5. So, strike one up for the Big 12 after a down week one for the conference. And the Big 10 goes down in this one in a matchup that I'd been touting for most of the offseason as one of the better under-the-radar matchups. We're going to see a extremely over-the-radar matchup involving the Big 12 and the SEC on Saturday night with Alabama hosting Texas, of course. And we will talk about that and all the big matchups of week two. A much, much better slate of college football in store for all of us than week one. We were all excited just to watch football in week one. And there was Florida State LSU. There was the Duke emergence on Monday night to cap off the weekend. There was Colorado, of course, and an exciting back and forth with TCU that sets the stage for the Buffs' home debut under Deion Sanders against Nebraska. We'll talk that one up as well. Oregon, Texas Tech intrigues me. Please give me a call. Amazon links in the description section of all the videos, including this one. Amazon link in the description section. Grab it, put it somewhere where you will not forget it, and use it. And if for whatever reason you use that link and it's a different shopping experience than your usual shopping on Amazon, please let me know. We've tried this out with about 20 people. Same shopping experience. They can't tell the difference. Got to use that link. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for helping to support the channel. All right. We also released our first Big Ten Paradigm podcast just hours ago. So this being on Friday, it's going to be released on Thursday morning going forward, and that's released on the College Gridiron Coast to Coast Network. So you can join us on College Gridiron Coast to Coast. And our Big Ten Paradigm podcast. So Big Ten fans, that's a must listen right here at the Voice of College Football. Big Ten Paradigm. And we will be posting that on Twitter. We'll post it here in the community as well on the Voice of College Football, which reminds me, folks, as we have unrolled Patreon throughout the last several years, we've been on Patreon probably 3 or 4 years at this point. And then with the YouTube memberships being a new thing, relatively speaking, here in the last couple of years, we wanted to add that to the equation as well. And it was really a must that we do that on YouTube. But at the same time, I didn't in any way want to make it difficult for any of you to gain all the perks, all the benefits of being part of our community here at the Voice of College Football and have to subscribe to both Patreon and YouTube. No. So we want to provide the same for each. So I have in the past let YouTube members know, hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail, and I'll get you the Discord link. The light went off a few days ago, and I thought, Mark, just put the link in the community page. And so for you YouTube members, you will see the Discord link on the community page. It will only be available to you, and you can join us on Discord. My predictions for the weekend will be going up late tonight after we get off the air here. 16-8 against the spread. Keep that in mind. Big day in the Big Ten, including Iowa State. Of course, Corey Brada will be all over that one, covering it like no other. So join Corey after the game with Coach Don Patterson on either the Iowa channel here at the Voice of College Football or your daily stop for Iowa football from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Corey, what's going on tonight?
Well, first of all, not a good night for the Big Ten. Although, I've been saying it for the last 2 or 3 months. I think Kansas is underrated. I was surprised they were picked so low in the conference. But anyways, on a different subject, Illinois can't stop the run. And we'll see, man. That's going to be interesting. That surprised me. All right. That surprised me to see Illinois and a team, coached obviously by Brett, and I'm sure he'll get those guys and they'll improve by the time we hit Big Ten play. But, they lost a lot in the back end with Witherspoon, and I mean they had some attrition back there. But man, as the game went on, they couldn't stop the run, and it was kind of. I didn't watch I didn't watch the first half really at all. I was out of town, but you could kind of just that last series. They had that one last chance in 3rd and 3, and it was kind of the epitome of the numbers as I went back and looked at them. I think they averaged. Did I see that right? That Kansas averaged. What did they average per carry? Do you have the per carry numbers in front of you?
I'll pull it up here.
Man, that's not. People got to realize. I don't think maybe people appreciate this, especially non-Big Ten fans. They don't realize how good Illinois' defense was last year. We're talking like most of the year they were, and granted, I get it. They play in the West, and it's a weak offensive division. But that was a really good defense last year. Am I fair in saying that? And go back and watch that Michigan game and see how they played in Ann Arbor.
Absolutely. And that was proven by the NFL draft as well, with Witherspoon going high. Sidney Brown, brother of Chase Brown, the under-publicized Brown, was actually the better NFL prospect at safety. And yes, they were loaded on defense. And even coming back this season, their defensive line is supposed to be one of the best in college football, and their front seven, one of the best in the Big Ten.
Yeah, you have those numbers in front of you, Mark?
Yes. So I'm placing them on the screen here in a second, but Kansas rushed 44 times for 262. That's 6 yards per carry.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's sick. That is absolutely sick.
And Illinois had 2 sacks. So consider you could knock off 2 carries and probably add 15 yards to that. So well over 6 yards per carry.
Am I right in saying how many long runs did they have? They have anything? How many explosive plays on the ground?
Yeah, I kind of set this one up on the audio podcast that I was just talking about with Devin Neal at running back. 10 carries for $120. So Kansas's leading rusher, 12 yards per carry, 43-yard run. And so he may have had other long runs as well, in addition to the 43, because that's obviously the long run is the only one shown on the box score. Then Daniel Highshaw scored a touchdown. He ran for a 28-yard run, 12 carries for 98. So their 2 top rushers went for 12 yards a carry and 8.2.
Man, those are. That's disturbing. If I'm an Illini fan, that's disturbing. And I'm a big Brett Bielema fan. But man, I don't know. It's not like this is game 1. If anybody didn't watch that game last week, they could have easily lost to Toledo last week.
Yeah.
That's a good football team in the MAC, but it's not like this was a wake-up call. So, this is kind of the week, Mark. You heard me say it last week, especially playing teams in the group of 5 that have so much attrition due to the transfer portal and all that's going on, moving levels, etc. with these players. I think you've got to, the verdict has to stay out on most of these teams until at least week 2. But now, man, especially with Illinois, you got a good good MAC team that you saw him against. Now you got a team that I think is underrated in Kansas, but I don't think will finish in the top half of the conference. Now maybe you're going to tell me I'm wrong, but for them to get just absolutely shredded on the ground, that is absolutely sick. And I like I said, that's got to keep Brett up at night, because that is what he's built this program on. He's restored them up front, and I think you and I were both somewhat surprised at how fast he was able to get that done.
Yeah.
And so I expected Jalen Daniels to hurt him through the air, but those numbers are just insane. And again, I missed much of those yards. I'm sure, in the first half when they built the lead, and of course they were coming back and were able to run. Yeah, I just if you're an Iowa fan, this makes you feel pretty good, because Illinois' got a soft schedule, and they may get it figured out, but they didn't look like a team that's going to win the West again. Or, well, I know they didn't win it last year. They don't look like the best team in the West again, at least as of right now.
And one of the key points to their defensive effort last year, and you can appreciate this as a guy who covers Iowa on a regular basis, where aside from a player here and there, where I was developing solid 3 stars, high 3 stars, a few 4 stars into great defenses, the guys that we mentioned from that great defense last year at Illinois and others that are still there, Zerjon Newton being one of them up front, they weren't, for the most part, they weren't highly recruited players. So whatever they did between Ryan Walters as a defensive coordinator and Brett, they developed these guys much in the fashion that Iowa does, taking lower regarded players and making them not just a great unit collectively as a defense, but then developing them to be NFL players is pretty astounding. But they didn't look like it tonight. And a number of those guys are obviously gone, as we mentioned.
And Mark, they get an extra day of prep, but you know who they get next week?
Illinois' got, they're not going into the Big Ten yet, are they?
They got Penn State.
Oh, that's right. So they must be playing their third non-conference game into the schedule. Okay. All right. So they're not playing all 3 conference games first. Okay. And that could be a bounce back. I know that based on this performance, nobody's going to give them a chance.
Well, I gave them a chance preseason because they're at home.
Yeah, I did too.
But man, like I said, you cannot, you just cannot, and maybe it's because I'm indoctrinated into the Iowa way, the Kirk Ferentz way, but you just cannot give up 6 yards on the ground a carry and expect to compete anywhere.
Well, I sent you a DM during the game. I don't know if you saw it, because I was locked in pretty well in the first half, besides being on the phone. And then I get into the second half and it's 34-7. And of course I lost interest. And then Illinois put up a touchdown and got the ball back. And I honed in a little bit after that, because I was hoping for some drama at the end, because they did get within 2 scores, 11 points.
Yeah.
With about 8 or 9 minutes. So there was plenty of time if their defense could have gotten a stop, but they didn't, of course. So I was back into the ball game at that point. But I picked, based on my predictions, my season predictions, if you look at the wins and losses out of the conference, you can tell that I obviously picked Kansas to defeat Illinois. But then I changed my mind and I picked Illinois when picking the game. And I was kicking myself because I had thought Kansas this entire time. Much like you said when you got on the call to begin, I was expecting this. This was one of the more anticipated non-conference games for me, not being a elite kind of Ohio State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Texas kind of showdown, but an under the radar selection. I really liked this game, and it didn't turn out to be the game that I thought, as Kansas just ran them off the field in the first half.
Well, I'll tell you this, Mark. This is the type of game in December that I love. Okay? Like this is the type of game that makes the bowl season great. Like it's Like, what was the? Let's be honest. I think you and I will probably agree on this, regardless of the playoffs. What was the most entertaining bowl game last season?
Well, I know what you're going to say.
Well, what do you mean? What I'm going to say? I mean,
We're talking about Kansas here,
of
and
course
then
I
you're
am.
talking about bowl games, so you're going to bring up the game that they played against Arkansas.
Absolutely.
Just because it was the highest scoring.
What do you mean? Didn't it go like triple overtime?
Yeah, I don't remember.
How
I know
was that
it was
not
like 58-56 or something like
is
that.
that not the
Whatever it
most
was.
entertaining game of bowl season?
I'd have to think about it.
Man,
Are we counting the playoffs?
and the year, well, of course we are, but the year before,
Georgia and Ohio State wasn't more entertaining.
This isn't that hard, Mark.
It's much better brand of football.
Well, sure, absolutely, but the year
Like,
before,
you can just tell that the athleticism and the athletes are just
well,
so much better.
I thought the Music City Bowl was pretty darn entertaining. Anyways, I thought the year before. How about the Music City Bowl in previous bowl season? You remember that game?
Oh, well, the Purdue-Tennessee game.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a great game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See, this game isn't that hard. There's always those types of games in bowl season. To me, this game this evening, Illinois, Kansas, it's just not. Now, is this a home and home? Do they go to Champaign next year?
It's a great question. I'll find out.
Because you don't see as many. It seems like you see less and less Big Ten teams playing Big 12 teams out of conference during non-conference play, but I could be wrong on that. But I'm all for it. I think this is styles, the contrasting styles, and I got ripped yesterday. I don't know if you ever get ripped, Mark, so I'll have to tell you a little bit about it. But
I'm beyond that.
Yeah, well, I got ripped. I got ripped yesterday because I happened all my picks this week. I picked every Big Ten team on the selections that you made. You make these games, by the way. Everyone I picked the Big Ten team to win every game, and I picked every Big 12 team to lose. Okay, but part of that is, have you seen the match?
Falling right into place until you run out of what are those?
Keep going.
What in the world was that?
Well, that was I had the ad up with I had the
what was the ad about?
I had the box score up. I don't know. I couldn't see the ad. I just had the box score up. So
I thought something was.
Might cost me some money tonight.
Yeah. But no, like I say, what were we talking about?
We were talking about you picking the games this
week.
That's
right. Yeah. Have you looked at the match? Like, this is what I wanted to say back to the dude that ripped me. Have you looked at the matchups? Like, yeah, this game tonight, Kansas won, but as you said, you picked Illinois, and I think a lot of reasonable people picked Illinois.
Kansas was the favorite.
Well, they were at home. Yes, they were the favorites, but they weren't like, what were they, 3.5 point favorites?
Something like that.
Yeah. So, yeah. But anyways, the other games, you got Utah playing a Baylor team that literally got their pants pulled down by Texas State last week.
Yeah.
You've got Texas Tech, who got their pants pulled down by Wyoming. Who did Texas Tech play? Oregon.
Yes.
I mean, what am I supposed to give some flying endorsement for the Big 12 based on those matchups? And then again, let me forget. Only the most powerful college football dynasty of all time in Alabama taking on the Texas Longhorns. Oh, and by the way, that's in Alabama.
Yeah.
So anyways, I just thought that was funny. But I did pick the Big Ten to win a lot of games this week. I don't know if did you see my score prediction for Iowa State tomorrow?
I did not.
No, you don't watch my channel. 26 to 17, Mark.
Okay.
26-17. I've got Iowa winning. Although I did get last thing I'll say, because I know you probably got other people who want to jump on here. 26-17. I got a call from none other than Don Patterson this evening, who had watched. He went back and watched Iowa State UNI from last week.
Yeah,
he was actually impressed by Iowa State. But one thing he said this evening was, you know who he's really. You'll never get this, but you know who he's really proud of right now. He's really proud of the Kansas offensive coordinator. Now, do you know his name?
Not offhand, no.
Okay. Well, he's obviously doing a stellar job there. Is that fair?
I'm going to guess I've heard of him.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember his name, but.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to. Is it fair to say he's doing a pretty good job at Kansas?
Yes, they did a great job last year.
He was a GA with Don Patterson at Western
Oh.
Illinois.
Okay.
So
All
he
right.
was
So he's not a young dude.
well, no, not real young, but I mean,
Oh, he was a GA under
Don
Patterson.
Patterson at
Okay.
Western. Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
I thought you said he was a GA with, meaning
No.
Patterson was a GA.
Heaven forbid.
Okay.
No. I'm saying he was a GA for Don Patterson at Western Illinois.
And by the way, Corey, if I did watch anyone's channel, it would be yours.
Oh, that's so nice.
But I you know that I don't watch anybody.
So yeah, exactly. So you basically
I don't want my opinion to be influenced by anyone. So anytime, and it rarely happens that somebody takes a shot at me and thinks that I regurgitated something from somebody else, I can honestly say, no, I don't, because I don't listen to anybody else. Therefore, I'm immune to anybody else's opinions. Now, the other thing is I get a full hour of you on Tuesday. And of course, it's top-notch college football podcasting. It's college football podcasting at its best, folks. And if you like to listen rather than just watch, and if you want that to be an option at times, our Iowa Hawkeye show with Corey is on Spotify. It's on Apple and Google Play. And just go to From the Hawkeye of the Storm.
And we don't always just stick to Iowa, Mark.
We don't.
We don't always just stick to Iowa, which, by the way, that reminds me, I need to have a conversation with you next week about something.
That also
so anyways,
me that I had a conversation about something that we discussed the other day that I followed up on.
okay.
Supposedly being followed up on.
Does it have to do with the letters BR?
Some work that we did together.
Okay. Yes. I was just thinking about that earlier today, actually. I got some notification from someone, and I just thought, oh yeah, forgot about that. So anyways, do you have are you willing to share I know you got your Patreon people, but are you willing to share your prediction for the Cy-Hawk game?
I will share that prediction. I've not officially made it. I've not made my predictions yet. I've got to make them after we get done here. But this is an easy one because I do think Iowa is going to win and cover.
No.
Yes.
Now, why do you say that? Because it's clear Iowa's win against Utah State was not perceived to be a great performance.
And that might be a good thing. That might be a good thing. That
I agree.
Maybe
I agree.
Gets their attention a little bit. But when they were at their sharpest, coming out at the beginning and freshest at the beginning of the game under Cade McNamara's leadership, they drove right down the field and put up 2 touchdowns. So this offense is going to be decidedly better. I just believe that it will overall. And even though the final stats didn't show it in week 1, when the game was in doubt, they were focused, first quarter, grabbed that lead. They did run a really good, efficient offense. And I just think Iowa State, I just don't know. I'm a bit surprised maybe that you think that Iowa State's going to score that many points.
16? Or I'm sorry, what did I say?
17.
17? Well, I mean, maybe they won't get there, but man, well, they won a game last year against Iowa by scoring 10, so it's possible.
I'll give you a score, 20-10.
Okay.
Iowa.
Yeah, I just, maybe I said this to you on Tuesday, and maybe I'm regurgitating, but, and I apologize to your viewers now if they don't care to hear about the Cy-Hawk game, but it is a good rivalry. I think the one thing that when I look at this game, and it's always close. I shouldn't say always. It's more often than not close. Like, there have been exceptions. 2016 was an exception, right? But the one thing that I think has evened this series out as far as the scoreboard is concerned has been the skill position talent that Iowa State has had virtually every year. And Mark, let's just call a spade a spade. I'm an Iowa guy. Iowa State has consistently had better skill position talent for the length of Matt Campbell's tenure. All right. I mean, think about the guys that they have produced at running back and wide receiver that are now in the league. Alan Lazard, Breece Hall, David Montgomery. Man, he had a big role in winning that game for the Lions last night. Obviously there's Xavier Hutchinson, Hakeem Butler. Like they have had, I don't want to say, I'm not going to use the word freaks because we use that term too much, but really, really good skill position talent, especially for a school like Iowa State. And I give them credit for that. And so now I look at their situation right now, regardless of what they did against UNI last week, because it's an FCS team. UNI, I think, is probably going to be down this year. What's the oh, by the way, let's not forget a guy named Brock Purdy, who's having a pretty good stint in the NFL right now at the Niners. So, you have something to say, Mark?
You made a point a couple weeks ago you made this point actually several weeks ago, and then wanted to present that to our buddy Levi Stevenson, and did so in our last show about the dominance of Iowa in-state recruiting over Iowa State, and that being possibly an indictment against Iowa State. The point that you just brought up about the tremendous skill position player advantage Iowa State's have had over the last 10 years over Iowa, do you think that's an indictment against Iowa, whether that be from a recruiting standpoint at those positions or development?
I think it's yes, I absolutely do. I think it's an indictment on development, but it's also an indictment on philosophy, right? It's an indictment on Brian Ferentz, and it's an indictment on Kirk. Sure, absolutely.
Because this is the comparison between Iowa and a school that's under 500 or roughly 500 in the last 10 years. This is not one of the best schools in the conference. This is not Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan showing up and saying, okay, let's make a comparison here. Iowa can't keep up from a skill position standpoint.
Yeah, but at the same time, State. But Mark, those guys are NFL guys.
They are, but it's still
they've had better. I'm saying, okay, I'm simply saying,
yeah, that's an impressive list.
And you look at other, and I know Hakeem Butler's not doing
close to the top 20 teams in the country.
Well, but Iowa's not consistently playing it. But Iowa's not playing the top 20 teams in the country. They play 2, maybe 3 top 20 teams year in and year out. So,
and Iowa makes up for it in other ways. Yeah, at other positions.
Yeah, exactly. And so when they play, for instance, when Iowa plays Illinois or Northwestern or Rutgers or even Nebraska or Minnesota.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Minnesota's a bad example because they've had pretty good skill position talent too. But those teams don't produce that type of talent, or at least they haven't recently at those skill position spots. No. So Iowa State, I just think that's kind of been a variable at play that's kept them competitive in this series. And now I look at the situation. One thing they've got going for them tomorrow is they've got that home crowd, and that is a factor. But they lose their quarterback to a betting issue, so they're starting a first-year guy, a guy who's never started at Iowa State, Rocco Beck. They got J.J. Cole, who's a true freshman who did enroll early, but is a true freshman who will probably get some snaps at quarterback. They lose their number 1 running back in Jairol Brock, also to betting. So they have 2 young guys, promising young prospects, Abu Sama and the other kids, Cartavius Norton. Looked good last week again. UNI. They've got a wide receiver who people perceive to be maybe the next guy at receiver because they've had the next guy, it seems like, at every turn. Jalen Knoll had 4 catches for 6 yards last week. 4 for 6 yards. How's that even? That's like an Iowa wide receiver. How do you even do that? Like, Mark, I'm pretty sure that if you and I went out there and I threw with my bad arm, I'm pretty sure we could get more than 6 yards on 4 catches.
You would think so.
So, anyways, and maybe that's just more of a result of how they attacked you and I. That and maybe he'll show out and go for $120 tomorrow. I guess that's possible, but I don't see any difference makers right now, proven difference makers at receiver. And then they got a bunch of young tight ends. And Mark, they've been really strong at tight end over Matt Campbell's tenure. They don't have a ton of experience there, and I don't know. I just don't know. Like you said, where are the points going to come from? They got a really good kick. They got a really good kicker who made like a 56-yarder last week.
And my initial reaction to the point spread in week 1 against Utah State was that was the first game I didn't need to think about. I just, bam, Utah State, I'll take the 23.5. Thank you. This, I had the same reaction that this is one of the easier selections I'm going to make. Iowa, lay the 4. I'm good. And I hesitate that making that selection with Iowa from week to week because the math is simple that the closer the game stays to the number 0 is where the game starts, of course, 0-0. And Iowa, more than any other program in the country, keeps that number on a regular basis on both sides of the scoreboard closest to 0, that it's more difficult to cover a point spread.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
But you and I are both saying that Iowa covers, and like I said, I'm with you. I just don't know where the points come from, and they play a defense that's, I think, probably good, above average in the defensive backfield, but they did lose some pieces up front. I think both teams will struggle to score, so maybe they won't. Maybe 26-17 is a little bit much, but that's not that many points. That's not that many points in college football. It is for Iowa, but it's not.
The over under is 36.5.
So that would be hitting the over, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Comfortably.
And under. And you know how it went last year is that Iowa continued to not score and continued to hold the opposition to where some of those late season over unders became historic for Iowa. They hit like some 31s.
Yeah.
When they played Rutgers, I think it was 30, 29, something in that range.
Well, yep, that actually happened. So yeah, it could be very, low scoring, uneventful, but at the same time, we've also seen both these teams with a propensity to create turnovers off opponents. And, last week, Iowa State had a pick 6. Iowa, again, typically is the king of defensive scores. Excuse me. And, so anyways, I'll be at the game, Mark, and just so you're aware, I don't know exactly what the format's going to be. But 2 years ago, for people who've been following your channel for a long time, 2 years ago at this game, we did some live streaming outside the stadium on your channel.
Yes, that was fun.
And that was interesting. I enjoyed it. I don't know that it did anything for your channel.
Absolutely, it did. Of course, it did.
It gave people something different to consume pregame. I'm going to be doing something live. We're going to be out there and hitting up a tailgate or two. We're going to do something live on the channel prior to the game. And then, of course, one thing I guess I should make a correction on. You said something about Don Patterson. He will not be with me tomorrow. Okay. Because he's being honored at Western tomorrow. But he'll be with me Sunday evening. So I'll have a post-game show, just me tomorrow after Cyhawk. And then him, Don Patterson, myself, Sunday at 6 p.m. Central on the channel, both channels. So we'll have a full week. It's a busy weekend.
Yes, it is. And unbeknownst to you, you are featured on the first edition of Big Ten Paradigm, our audio podcast as well.
What does that mean?
Well, that means that we previewed this weekend's action. So we took a clip of you and Levi.
Oh, okay. So Big Ten Paradigm, that's the name that you had under the previous regime, correct?
Well, there was no previous regime. It's the same regime.
But, it's the same regime.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I feel like we haven't talked in years, Mark.
Yeah, it has been about 3 days.
Okay. Well, can I just real quickly, comment of the day is from, let me find the comment. Just wanted to give a shout out to somebody, one of your regular people on here, and maybe I'm not gonna be able to find it now that I actually want to find it. Uncle Rico, remember that time when he said he was probably going to go because there were other callers? I always love that because this happens every time I call in. So anyways.
All right, Corey.
All
we'll
right.
be looking forward to post game.
Unlike you, I'll watch your channel here this evening. So
Well, I appreciate it.
You have a good show, Mark. Thanks.
Thanks, Corey. All right, we will keep it rolling. And again, that was Corey Bratta from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Most of you know, but for those of you who don't, Iowa football coverage like no other from the Hawkeye of the Storm with Corey. We got one of our favorites here. Jackson's showing up to talk some college football.
Up?
Big win.
What's up, Mark?
Tonight. What is up? What's going on?
Not much. Just watching a little bit of Kansas, Illinois. Love that performance from Jalen Daniels. Oh, man. He had a 277 passing yards tonight, and he had a 72% completion rate with 21 out of 29 completed passes, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And I'm looking at Devin Neal. He had a great game tonight.
10 for
167 all-purpose yards.
Yep.
Oh, man. Luke Altmaier, oh, man, I thought he was going to get called for a penalty for going over the line of scrimmage at one point in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
But it was just like, oh, man. But, yeah, I see that you got a new show, Big Ten Paradigm.
So the Big Ten Paradigm is an audio podcast.
Oh, sweet.
So we will drop that all over the place on Twitter, on here, and we'll provide that for everyone to check out our audio podcast. So that is not going to be something that you're going to be able to hear anywhere else. But yes, we cut our first one today.
I'm looking forward to it. I did see a little bit of Corey's prediction earlier today about Iowa State. I think he's a little too optimistic about Iowa going over 24 points.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to go over 20 points.
Well, I think clearly Corey wants to keep Brian Ferentz right on the edge of 25, make him nervous the entire season.
Yeah, because that contract where it says if Brian Ferentz doesn't have an average of 25 points per game, he's out of there. I don't even think he's going to last long throughout the mid-season.
No, the condition is not that he gets fired. The condition is that he doesn't meet his bonus.
Right.
Yeah.
I got a little mixed up. Sorry about that. But yeah, I'm just like, I hope it'll be a high-scoring game, but if it's a low-scoring game, that's okay too. So it's going to be an amazing slate for Ole Miss, Tulane, Texas A&M, Miami, and we got Iowa State. The 2:30 slate, I do have to admit, is a lot better this week than last week. I just wish that Indiana kept it closer with Ohio State because good buddy of mine, Indiana man himself. So,
let's forget about week 1. Indiana's off to bigger and better things than dealing with
Indiana State.
You know, getting upset by one of the worst teams in the Big Ten last week. They're on to bigger, better victories this week.
I don't think Indiana State seems like bigger things, but I guess they got a fun game against Louisville next week.
No, let's bask in the victory tonight. Let's not be looking ahead.
Yeah, well,
down the Sycamores. I
don't
know
what
the
they
final
say.
score was. The last I saw it was like 31-7.
I was 38-7.
Okay,
I believe. So
I had the game on. Jeffrey will be proud of me. I did have the game on.
I figure he'll be. I figure he's celebrating. I saw him a little bit on Twitter. He was celebrating, having a good time tonight.
That's why Indiana State's on the schedule, to make Tom Allen and the Hoosiers feel good. For one of the few times.
There he's commenting 41-7. Made a little mistake.
It's impressive.
41-7. Oh man. But yeah, that Bama Texas game, that's gonna be awesome tomorrow night. Yes. But I will tell you what does amaze me, that a year from now, we're going to be thinking of Oklahoma, SMU, and Auburn, California as SEC, ACC matchups. That's
That's a
just
good point.
I mean, you know what they say, truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah. Can you imagine selling someone on that a couple years ago?
If you told somebody that it was going to happen in 2021, they'd have been like, you're crazy. I mean, Oklahoma being in the SEC is not crazy, but SMU, California, Stanford being in the ACC, try telling that to someone in, say, 2018. Good grief. Oh,
And here
man.
we are.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Jackson. Anything else?
That's about all for tonight. I'm just kind of getting some things ready for tomorrow, getting some notes all set for Colorado, Nebraska.
Nice.
When I think of Black Friday, I'm usually thinking of Colorado, Nebraska.
Yeah.
I mean,
I thought about doing a watch party, but we also have Notre Dame and NC State, and there's another good game at noon. I think Baylor and Utah play at noon, don't they?
oh yeah, that's gonna be like a future
So,
Big
yeah, I
12
didn't want to
game.
focus on one game. So, all right,
Well,
Jackson.
and there's another underrated game. The defending Big 12 champs, Kansas State, and Troy, who's got the second longest active winning streak in college football still.
Okay.
That's a shot to some people, but I would love to see if Troy can keep the winning streak going, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I hear you.
But
All right,
but
Jackson.
Mark, thank you for having me on, and I'll probably see you soon.
Sounds good. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me on.
Let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please use our link. And I appreciate everyone that does, because many of you do. And the use of that link is going up. So somebody out there is listening to me. So thank you so much for that. JR's on the line to talk some college football tonight.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Writing a blog post right now, so figure I'd hop on. I must confess, your chat was talking about the Ohio State fan that was clamoring for IU's offense earlier today, and I must confess that was me. I was the one starting a narrative on Twitter. So,
What would that narrative be?
I just made a comment that maybe IU's offense wasn't as bad as everybody thought it was because they only scored 3 points against Ohio State. Which
Well,
I thought,
I made a bold prediction after that game because, yes, there were a lot of college football fans kind of making fun, saying, of course, Ohio State only held them to 3 points because anyone could have held that option, whatever garbage attack that they threw at Ohio State last week after preparing the entire summer for that game. However, I will guarantee that Indiana will average more than 3 yards and 153 yards of total offense, or 3 points and 153 yards of total offense per game this season.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was interesting. I made a tweet about this, and I don't know if you saw it or not. You probably didn't, but out of all of the top 25 teams last week, in their season opener, Ohio State held their opponent to the lowest total yards in the game. I think next was like Texas or something like that. So, hey, a lot of teams are playing FCS schools, and Ohio State's playing a Power 5 team, and they're holding them to only 150 yards.
And yet Ohio State just had this despicable, horrible game, and the dirt is being flung on their grave, and they have no chance.
And as much as I'd like to blame the national media for that, it's more the Ohio State fans than anyone else.
Yeah,
that I've
you could
seen
be right.
Of. So, hey, no, the real thing I wanted to bring up by calling in is, I feel like the Big Ten is basically just like the 80s with songwriters nowadays, because we have these one-hit wonders popping up every year. Last year was Illinois. Year before that was Michigan State. in 2021 and 2020. It was IU. In 2019, I'm trying to remember who I thought it was. Was it Minnesota in 2019?
11-2.
Yeah, and then the year before that was Northwestern, I
Yeah,
believe,
they won the
because they
division.
won the West. And I'll give them credit. They did. I think they had a good year before that as well.
No.
So
Anyway,
did they have 10 wins or something?
so I understand your narrative there. However, you could do that in any conference.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I just since I pay attention to the Big Ten more, it's funny to me that there seems to be these one teams kind of popping up every season, and I had high hopes for Illinois this year, and certainly their season's not over, but I had high hopes for them this year to really build off of that defensive line and to be able to really get somewhere with Brett Bielema, but at least for now, it's not looking like it will be similar to last season for now. But of course, last season they lost to Indiana early, so who knows? Maybe they will bounce back.
There you go. That has to be reminded to everyone that I'm not saying that tonight's game didn't mean anything, because Kansas was far superior to Illinois. It turned out to be much closer on the scoreboard than it actually was. Kansas was a much better team than Illinois tonight, but it is one game. It probably does mean something. Kansas probably is better than Illinois. Probably. Yeah. But it's one game.
Well, we always have to remember, too, it is on the road, and I'm not saying Kansas is a hostile environment or anything like that. But, that fan base is excited. Lance Leopold is bringing some juice to that football program and stuff. So, it's crazy to think about, but we might be seeing Kansas popping up as a bowl team every year, considering what they were years ago. I think Lance Leopold has a really good case to be known as one of the better coaches in college football right now.
Oh, I would agree with that. When he took over in 2021, I certainly noticed that the last half of that season, if you go back, they were losing all their games, but they were, for the first time in a long time, competitive. They got to the point where they were challenging some of the better teams in the Big 12 and mid-tier Big 12 teams within one score. And then, of course, this past season kicked in 2022 with 6 wins and a good non-conference game win against Duke. And here we go. In week 2, they're 2-0 with a solid win against a decent Illinois team. So, yes, give it up for the Jayhawks. Rock Chalk.
Didn't they beat Texas, Lance Leopold's first year there, too?
Yeah, I believe, was that 57-56 game?
Yeah, I think it was 2021 when that happened. So, and I think they only had like 2 wins that season.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Lance Leopold. Do you ever do any coach rankings or anything like that, Mark?
Oh, yeah, certainly do.
But
yes, coaches rankings every off season.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
They are there.
Where did you have Leopold? Just
that's
out
a great question.
Do you remember?
I will have to look that up.
Okay. Yeah, I figured
I had him around 25. I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, I think he can definitely enter top 20 if he has another season like he did last year, bowl eligible, and especially beating a veteran coach like Brett Bielema and stuff. So yeah. But all right, Mark. Well, I'll let you get to your next caller. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, JR. All right, everyone. You're the voice of college football, so please like the video and share it out there on social media. And we've got Buckeye Mike checking in. How about that? Buckeye Mike, what's going on?
Oh, not much. Just got home from work a little bit ago. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well for a late night Friday night. Can't wait for tomorrow.
Oh, I know tomorrow's so exciting. Well, for once, I wanted to come on and not talk about Ohio State.
Okay.
I think looking at this week with ECU having Marshall coming in to play down in Carolina. I just feel like they could have better production because the level of play is more equal in the sense that they're both group of 5 schools. But watch out for Cam Fancher, the quarterback at Marshall. He balled out last week. Yes, they barely beat Albany 21-17, but he went 28-35 for 268 and 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I mean, he looked really good on film, really good on, well, at least on paper he did. So I think ECU could start out 0-2 there. I would have to go with Arizona over Mississippi State, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I just think, I mean, yes, it's all SEC is better, but I mean, I don't know. Arizona seems like the better team to me. Granted, I haven't
Really?
had time this week to really look into much,
That would have
but
to be proven to me. They certainly weren't anywhere close to the better team last year.
and
And Mississippi State returns a ton of defensive production and one of the best quarterbacks in college football. So I will be mildly surprised if Arizona goes into Starkville and knocks off Mississippi State.
and then it seemed like the chat kind of agreed with me, but
Agree with
got
you on what?
Cal over Auburn.
Okay. Are you just
I
looking
think-
for upsets? Are you just kind of blindly searching for them?
No, I mean, I like Hugh Freeze, and I think he can take Auburn in the right direction. But
Sure.
to me, it seems like a rebuilding year, and I like what Wilcox does it or has been doing at Cal. I think that he's
What? I'm sorry, Mike, to interrupt. I'll let you continue before I question what you just said about Justin Wilcox.
well. I don't think it's fully there yet, but I think that he's getting Cal to go in the right direction as far as consistently being a 6-6, 7-5 kind of team. To at least make a bowl game. I know some of the Pac-12 people, like our good buddy Spencer, has been really high on Cal as far as at least bowl eligibility. So, I mean, I think there's definitely at least 6 wins on Cal's schedule.
Yeah. I would be less surprised about the Auburn loss at Cal traveling cross country than the Mississippi State loss to Arizona. But my goodness, I would lay a pretty strong bankroll on those 2 SEC teams not losing both of those games. And by Justin Wilcox going into this season, having gone 10-18 the previous 3 seasons, I'm not seeing the evidence of him turning this program into a 7 or 8 win program by going 10-18 the last 3 years.
Yeah,
I thought
I
he
think-
was a good hire, one of the best
Mhm.
defensive coordinators in the country. And his second year, he goes 7-6, goes to a bowl game. Then he goes 8-5, wins a bowl game, and it's been pretty rough since then.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of hard to I guess come to our own, like you were saying, you don't watch other people or listen to other people, because then people could say, well, your conclusion's not your own. And I think that's kind of like I'm piecing together every little thing that others have said and trying to come to my own conclusion. But I think it's
Well,
just
there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. We learn from other people. I'm just in a different position in that, not that I've never listened to anybody ever. It's so
Right.
I haven't listened to anything this season. During the off season, there's I do my best to gather my information by reading facts and watching games, basically. But it's not like I never listen to anything anyone ever has to say, but it's pretty rare that I do. I haven't not listened to anything out of whomever any of the chat would throw out there as being other college football analysts. And again, I partially do that out of not wanting to regurgitate what anyone else has to say. Now, if I do hear a good point made by somebody else, I will credit that point to them and let them know, let the audience know, okay, I heard something interesting from so-and-so this week, or Joel Klatt said during the game Saturday that X, Y, and Z. So I certainly attribute it to whomever, but I also don't watch a lot of college football analysis because I spend my entire day working on my business. I would like to work on more football than business, but tends to be more business than football. But so I'm ready to check out.
Right. A generalized question for this season that I haven't just had the chance to ask you prior to the season starting. With the schools coming into the new conferences, like the new Big 12 schools, do you think that the matchup like this weekend, UCF and Boise State, do you think that even though UCF is now the quote unquote bigger school because they're now Big 12, do you think that it's still a level playing field because they're just now transitioning to being the bigger school?
Yes.
That's what I thought. And
generally, yes, but so from the point that I believe that you're making is that Boise State is historically, meaning in recent history, the very elite of Group of Five programs. They are the best. There's nobody that comes anywhere close. Cincinnati's had their peak, Houston's had their peak, other schools have had their peak, including UCF. But overall, BYU or Boise State has been untouchable. Now, of course, Boise State's not at its peak, and UCF has a larger school, larger alumni base, more money, bigger stadium, all these things. And now they go into the Big 12, but of course, they have not recruited yet, and the players on the field for this game on Saturday were not recruited into the Big 12. So the teams that we're going to see on Saturday might as well be the American Conference against the Mountain West.
See, that's what I thought. And I think, honestly, I think with the kind of play that comes out of John Rice Plumlee, I get the whole, like, it's Boise State, it's the blue turf. But I really think with the way that John plays, that UCF may have an edge. Now, that's not to say Boise State still won't win because it is at Boise. So I wouldn't be honestly, I'm at the point I wouldn't be surprised with either result. And so yeah.
So I'm looking up the line. So UCF, despite being on the road, is a 3.5-point favorite.
Jeez. Well, I mean, that's still a toss up.
Oh, sure it is.
But it is still a shocker that UCF would be the favorite.
It's a shocker?
Well, like I said, I just it's a shocker to me just because of, like you said, Boise State historically, it's
that's history. I was talking about history. I'm not talking about what should be decided by Vegas on Saturday.
So last question for you for tonight. Are you also surprised that Boise State hasn't been brought up from the group of five? Because I would have thought that that would have been one of the first moves made.
By whom? Big 12?
Originally I had thought Pac-12, but
Sure. Yeah.
that's all shot up. As far as what ones are left, I would assume that it would probably be the Big 12, but with the Big 10 and the ACC making the moves that they've made. I'm not saying that either conference would do that, but I mean, anything is possible since they're both coast to coast now.
Well, now that the Pac-12 is imploded, we have found out a few things about the Pac-12 that we didn't necessarily know at the time, or at least I didn't. I shouldn't say this across the board, or don't remember this being part of the analysis of what's going to happen with realignment. And that's that the Pac-12 had the opportunity to pick apart the Big 12 when the Big 12 was vulnerable after the exits of Oklahoma and Texas, that the Pac-12 was in a position to pick apart the Big 12, just like they were in the position to do that 10 or 12 years ago. And the Pac-12 wanted to keep its conference in play and played a conservative role. So if they weren't going to go after the Big 12 schools, they certainly weren't going to go after Boise State. The negatives on the Boise State side would be size of the school, and also academic standing of the school, and also Boise in regards to the size of a television market. However, in reviewing some of these candidates for realignment, I discovered that Boise, although it's still a small television market, is growing rapidly. They have tacked on, just between 2020 and currently, their market size has gone from like 230,000 to 310,000. Like that's like a 25 to 30% leap in 3 years. So a lot of people from California and elsewhere on the West Coast are going to Boise, Idaho. It's cheap to live there, and it's still in an area of the country where they want to be, but it's cheap and the politics are different. And so people have moved to Boise, Idaho. And so they do have that going for them. And of course, they're going to field an excellent football program and product. They've consistently, they've been more consistent, even though, again, they've tapered off. They're not at their peak of the mid 2000s under Chris Peterson. Continue to, of course, be an excellent group of five. And they have shown they're not going to have the ups and downs of a Houston or someone like that. So it is an attractive football program.
For sure. And I guess since you brought up Houston real quick, in general, the three smaller schools, because I guess BYU wouldn't really be a smaller school in that sense. Do you think that any of the three could be like middle of the pack in the Big 12 this year, or are they looking at being at the bottom?
Mid to bottom. So I'm trying to think of what my predictions are. My predictions were that UCF would go 6-6. I had Houston at 5-7, Cincinnati at 4-8, and BYU at 6-6. Now that doesn't speak to their conference records, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But they're out there. So that's where I've placed those teams this year.
All right, Mark. Well, I'm sure you got other callers. Last thing I want to say, everybody, use that Amazon link. Hit the like button. There's a lot of us in here. Hit that like button. Give this man some help. He does a great job, and we all appreciate it.
Buckeye Mike's going to be on my short list of people that I have as pitchmen for promotions. That was well done.
You have a good one, Mark. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We will keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. Yes, the Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. Doesn't cost you a penny. Same shopping experience. Jeffrey, wearing that Indiana cap proudly.
I had to put it on. First things first, though, I have to mention what Jackson said. He finally acknowledged that this 3:30 slate is better than last 3:30 slate. You got
Well
him
done,
on board,
Jackson.
Mark. You did it. So that's good. And yeah, I thought it really interesting what you guys were talking about with Mike about Boise. Yes, Boise is a growing market because I love looking at population figures actually. And Boise, it's insane how many people are moving there. Like the rapid increases. Yeah, it would make sense for them to be in the Big 12. And really, that's the only conference where it would work because, like you said, they're not academically viable to be enough to be in the ACC or the Big 10. So they have to be in the Big 12 at this point. That's their only move.
Yeah, it's such an intriguing football program and area of the country and school and all of that. And it's just a remarkable story of how this program was built to compete against the big boys, but they're still relegated to the Mountain West. But the Mountain West, they could soon be matching up against Oregon State and Washington State on a regular basis.
Yeah, those have always been really good games. I know no one cares because I've seen the chat saying that they're getting sick of talking about these low-tier games or whatever. But yes, have to bring up Indiana since I'm wearing the hat. Yes, Indiana looked good. And yes, it's Indiana State. They're not a very good team. And it should have been 41-0. But unfortunately, Jalen Lucas, Indiana's best player, he fumbled the ball and it was a scoop and score. But other than that, I mean, it was a good game for Indiana. Taven Jackson's probably going to be the starter. Like when me and you talked about it last week, he looked like he had more of the upside, and he went out there and threw for 250 yards, no picks, had a rushing touchdown. And Indiana had 5 rushing touchdowns on the ground, the most in the Tom Allen era. So, like I said, I'm not saying Indiana's going to beat Louisville next week because, like you said, way too early to look ahead. It's awesome just to see him get a win because they don't normally do it, especially in that fashion, granted the opponent. But I do think Indiana is a little bit better than some people were giving them credit for prior to this season. The transfers, a lot of them are hitting. I mean, you talk about, Christian Turner in the backfield. He's been solid. Taven Jackson at quarterback. EJ Williams at receiver. And then the defense, Andre Carter has been great. Linnell Carr. Some guys have been really hitting, and I think that it could allow Indiana to be a 5-7, 6-16 possibly.
Would love to see them get to 6 to get to a bowl game so we can talk Indiana football for another 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, it'd be nice, and hopefully, I'd be happy with them just going 6-6, play a bad team in a bowl, and they win, so they can get their first bowl win since '91.
Yeah, so they would probably get to the Quick Lane Bowl would be that last spot. So maybe they can reel in a MAC team or somebody to the Quick Lane Bowl.
I mean, they need it. I mean, they should have beat Tennessee. You remember that game, and they should have beat Duke.
They were up by 2 touchdowns.
Probably.
Sure.
The Duke game with the field goal and all, and the Utah game. Like every game that they've lost has been close. So their time's due, and they look better this year than they did last year. So that's a good thing. The other game tonight, Illinois, Kansas. Kansas looks good. I know that they kind of blew it a little bit late, but they still won comfortably. I was impressed with them. Lance Leipold has been very solid, at Kansas for what they normally do. I mean, that's a good coaching job there. So I'm very excited to watch more Kansas football this year. And I know that a lot of people are already assuming they're going to make a bowl game. It's not guaranteed. That schedule's not easy, but they do have the team to get to a bowl, just like Indiana. But I think Kansas is better, but their schedule's still tough enough where I could see them missing a bowl, but they should make it, I would think, if they keep playing well.
I was not aware of Indiana State's record last season, but Corey's letting us know right there.
Yeah. It's not very impressive, Indiana one. I know Indiana State is bad. The cool thing, though, is that Indiana State's head football coach is Kurt Mallory, the son of former Indiana head coach Bill Mallory. That is the winningest head coach in Indiana football history. That's cool. That's really, and yes, I knew that before the telecast as well. I didn't just watch the game and figure that out. I did know that before.
Bill Mallory, who is the last coach to have defeated Michigan before Tom Allen in 2020, and the last Indiana coach to have defeated Ohio State back in 1988. Ohio
And they
State and
tied in
Indiana.
90, I think.
They tied in 1990, 27 all. Yes, they did. So, 1988, 35 years ago, and they've played almost every year since.
Yeah,
It's been
crazy.
a while.
I mean, Anthony Thompson was so good back then. He was a beast at tailback. Then Von Dunbar after that. He was in 90, but Anthony Thompson was in 87, 88.
And what's amazing as well is Indiana won 2 consecutive years, 1987 and 88. The prior Indiana win over Ohio State before that was 1951.
Yeah.
So it took them 36 years.
So it means they'll do it next year, right?
Oh, and they'll beat them back to back.
I don't know. We'll see. That would probably help out Tom Allen's job. But definitely, I wanted to talk about some of the later games yesterday, but I didn't get to them because I just kept rambling about the noon games. But definitely, I wanted to talk about the overrated game between A&M and Miami, because that game last year was awful. It was a terrible football game. It was boring, and A&M squeaked it out. But this year, both teams are supposedly better than they were last year. And obviously, that's the game that is going to get the most attention probably in that window, despite the fact the game I'm most interested in is Ole Miss Tulane. I really want to see that game. And I know a lot of people think Ole Miss is going to blow the doors off of Tulane, and that's possible because Ole Miss looked really good, but it's against Mercer. So if we got to give props that Indiana only played Indiana State, Ole Miss only played Mercer. So I do think Tulane could make that game interesting. But again, A&M Miami is going to be the game that gets the most attention. But I do think Ole Miss Tulane should get more attention, for the diehard college football fan, because of the uniqueness of that game. Having an SEC team going on the road to a group of 5 like that, and a good one in Tulane, even though when that game was scheduled, Tulane probably wasn't very good back then, still just interesting.
Those are the 3 games that I will have on my 3 screens.
I'll be watching them all.
Texas A&M, Miami, Iowa, Iowa State. Those are the 3 that I would like to watch.
You're lucky that you have 3 screens. For me, I'll just be flipping the channel like every minute, and I'll miss a bunch of plays, but at least I'll be getting a third of each game. That's what I do. I just keep flipping through it. Sometimes I'll have a TV in the other room on, but it's like I don't want to go back and forth between the commercials. I just keep flipping it on the same TV.
Well, I'll make you feel better about that, Jeffrey, because when I was your age, I did the same thing. However, I had to crank the old dial on the actual screen. So,
yeah, I got a little bit better. I got the remote, so
Yeah, it was murder if you had to go from like 3 to 42. You were like twisting that dial as fast as you could.
It'd be a little bit better if you had it like a button for every single station, like on an elevator. It'd be like button 42 instead of having to flip through. You just be like button 42. Now back to button 3. But then you'd have like 50 buttons on your TV.
Yeah, a lot of people would wear those dials out because they just crank them back and forth so many times.
That's insane. I heard you talking with Corey about the Iowa State game.
Yeah.
And for me, I am interested in this 25-point thing because he keeps talking about it. Everyone keeps talking about it. I remember it when he was bringing up about having something on his screen or whatever on the top right, or that conversation was funny. But if Iowa scores 25 points in this game, and that's a big if, they're probably winning, I would think.
Yeah, I don't see Iowa State scoring 25 points against Iowa.
Yeah.
I just don't see that in any way, shape, or form. Iowa State, they did put up 30 last week against Northern Iowa. However, they only had 250 yards of total offense. They had a lot of things go right for them.
Yeah.
Defensive scoring, all of that.
So I know that it's kind of left field because I do want to briefly touch on the later games as well. But do you think Matt Campbell, his seat's getting warm finally? Because I know that a lot of people don't think of it that way because of what he's done, and I understand that. And yes, his success was not that long ago, but Iowa State's been really bad lately. And then all this stuff that happened this offseason, is he suddenly starting to get warm now? I would think that he's starting to get warm just a little bit.
Yeah, so in warm, I would agree, and my definition of that would be a bad season. So I will say bad, meaning 4 to 5 wins or less, of course. Not getting to a bowl game is a bad season. And then that would set him up for the administration really looking at 2024 as, okay, you need to be good this year. You need to be 7-5 good, step in the right direction, back to winning football, or you're probably going to be gone.
So do you think Tom Allen's seat is hotter than Matt Campbell's? I would agree with that.
Yes.
I would say it
Yes.
is, but it's weird because I feel like even though Tom Allen's seat's hotter, I feel like he's actually in better shape than Campbell, because Tom Allen hasn't had a offseason thing that happened with Iowa State. He hasn't had, anything like that go on with the program. And plus, Indiana has this team right here that a lot of guys are younger, like Jalen Lucas, Taven Jackson, that even if they go like 4-8, 5-7 this year, the schedule next season looks manageable. Most of these guys should be back. They could be better next year. So I think like he's set up better than Iowa State is, for example, because their roster does not impress me at all.
Their roster may impress you more if you listen to our guy, Levi Stevenson. He tends to tout up their roster there. With,
hey, I'm sorry. All I knew about Iowa
Nation.
State was Breece Hall, Charlie Kolar.
Yeah, he seems to
Brock
think that
Purdy.
they've got a bright young roster upcoming. I'm not going to pretend to know the Iowa State depth chart deep as I typically would, but I will say this, that it's going to be more difficult if the bar for Tom Allen and Matt Campbell is similar in regards to win totals. It's going to be much more difficult for Tom Allen to reach that. So he's going to have a better football team because he's going to be facing better competition. Iowa State's going to face schools week to week in the Big 12 generally that they should be able to compete against.
Makes sense. I mean, I hope neither get fired. And that's the thing. When I talk about stuff like this, I don't like seeing coaches get fired. I mean, unless obviously there are circumstances that make it, I guess, understandable, then, whatever. But other than that, I don't like seeing coaches get fired. So hopefully neither do. But yeah, you're right. I'm still hoping, man, 5-7, 6-6, Tom Allen, you'll be good to go. But Campbell, not confident. I guess because I'm sure you got people behind to get to the late games finally. Yeah, Mike touched on Marshall, ECU. I'm not very confident in ECU because obviously I live in the state. I follow them a lot. I had a family member go there, and they lost Keith Mitchell, CJ Johnson, and Holt Nailers. They're not the same team. They're not even close to the same team that they were last year. So I would go Marshall in that game. ECU could win. It'd be great if they won. I like ECU fine, but I'm not seeing it. Then App State, UNC. I've seen a lot of people saying that UNC is going to go down. I know that it could be a letdown, but this isn't at App State. And Chase Bryce, I think's gone at App State. He's no longer there. So I would think UNC is going to be better prepared, especially if their D-line plays like they did last week. And then for the late games, the CW, you got to bring up the CW. You've got Pittsburgh.
There you go. Yeah.
Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. You've got the CW network, a TV station that shows a bunch of, I don't know, like TV shows, I don't know, stuff like that, like Marvel stuff, superhero shows, whatever. Used to be the WB back in the 90s and 2000s. A lot of 30-year-olds would remember that. But, I mean, it's insane to me. Like, I wrote on Twitter, I said, I would be more shocked if we saw games on MTV or something. But at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if we're putting it on the CW.
I wonder what announced team that they grabbed to do that. I wonder if we'll recognize these guys.
Yeah, I'm going to have to watch that game for like 10 minutes just to see. I definitely. I think Pitt will win that one more than likely because it's at home and Scott Satterfield, I don't know, on Cincinnati. But I'd have to go with Pitt. But then the game, Texas-Bama. And obviously, got to talk about Bama, my ancestry team. They're amped, they're pumped. And they're wanting to prove that Texas is not back. Texas fans are wanting to prove that they are back. So this game's interesting. I mean, I feel like with like Milroe, the way he plays is gonna benefit Bama because of his legs. And I feel like because Texas, if they want to blitz him, he can just scramble out of that the majority of the time. It kind of like when you had like Bryce Young. And even though he can move, he's just small. So if you got like a big guy near him, it was over. But like Milroe can break that stuff. So I feel like Texas's best strategy would be to try to keep everything in front, make it where Milroe, if he takes off, he's going to only pick up like 3-4 yards and not blow the top off the defense if he's able to get out of a blitz and scramble down the field. And they need to, be able to put him in somewhat pressure situation, like you do some disguised zone blitz coverages where you look like you're going to blitz hard and then you don't. And then he throws a pick because he thinks the guy's open, stuff like that. And you can run in front. Like, that's how you're going to beat Alabama. I don't know if Texas is going to do that. And plus, it's in Bryant-Denny. Last year, Texas should have won. We talked about that a million times to my family's chagrin when they watched our replay, saying, how dare you say that, Jeffrey, that Alabama shouldn't have won. They shouldn't have. I mean, Texas should have won the game. I'm just being honest. Despite being a fan of Bama, I'm just being completely honest. They shouldn't have won, but I think Alabama's going to win this one by about 14 points.
Yeah, so Matthew Miller, we appreciate you being here. Mark, I'm loving my Kansas Big 12 championship pick. And yes, Matthew's on record here and otherwise of picking Kansas to play Texas in the Big 12 championship. And Jalen Milroe, what he showed us last week is that he can rifle it. So he's got an arm, but it's not about the arm.
Mm-hmm.
It's about making decisions and finding the right receiver, the right matchup in a short period of time, in 2 or 3 seconds, and making that right decision. It's not about, okay, we know that Ja'Cory Brooks is going to run a 9 route and you're dropping back and you get a clean pocket and you're going to heave it as far as you can. Yes, he can do that, but that doesn't win football games against a team like Texas. That showed that he could do that a handful of times against Middle Tennessee. And to his credit, he was accurate on his deep throws. But again, for the 20, if Alabama plays the type game that they want to play, he will probably throw the ball about 25 times. And there's going to be a number of times where it's predetermined, okay, you're going to throw a slip screen over here, or you're going to throw just a quick out here, or a slant, or you're going to chuck it. Most likely you're going to chuck it downfield 3 times a game. We're going to take our shots. But the other 15 to 18 times, he's going to have to read, go through progressions, and make the right decision. And we don't know if he can do that.
I agree. I mean, he's kind of like Anthony Richardson, but not the exact same. I feel like Anthony Richardson, his passes were always crazier, whereas Milroe, I feel like he is more contained. I feel like he has, the potential to be a much better passer, but like you said, it's just gonna take time, and we're gonna have to see it. But I am definitely looking forward to that game. It is deserving of the hype, but I do think Bama is gonna win, to my family's happiness there. And then Oregon, Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is going to make that a close game. I think that they are going to be really close. I'm going to pick Oregon there, but I think that Tech will be within a touchdown. That's going to be a good game that I'll be flipping as much as I possibly can to watch. Basically, last couple of games, UCF Boise, you already mentioned before. That's a good game, but I think UCF will win. Boise isn't what they've been the last, like 10, 15 years ago. It's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to that one, but I do think that UCF will win. It should be good, though. Wisconsin-Washington State's a good game as well. I mean, this window here, I mean, it stinks when you have all of these solid games like this when you've got that marquee game. Because you've got Bama, Texas. Most people are going to watch that game. But then you've got Oregon, Texas Tech, UCF, Boise State, and then Wisconsin, Washington State, all at the same time. And unless you're a fan of that team, you're probably going to watch Bama, Texas, and all these games are going to be forgotten about. And for me, like, if Bama's beating Texas by 28 points, which won't happen, but if they were, I would flip and watch these other games. But a lot of people would just leave it on Bama, Texas, and not even watch these games at all.
Yeah, Bama, Texas is obviously going to drive that window. And like you say, the brands are so big that there will be a lot of people out there that if it's 35-10 in the fourth quarter, it's still going to be on that network.
That's what
because
kills
it's
me.
Bama and
That's what's so
Texas.
crazy to me. I've seen people do this. Like I knew like a bunch of people that were still watching the Alabama Auburn game last year, and I flipped over to Oregon State. I was watching the Civil War go down, and that was a great game. I was like, Alabama's already won this game. I'm done. I'm glad Bama's winning, but I don't need to see it. Like I want to see Oregon State. That's me.
And some of those people probably challenged your fandom as a Bama
They
fan.
do. They always, you're not a real Bama. I'm like, come on. I just want to watch the good game. And then the last window after that, you've got, UCLA, San Diego State. I'm going UCLA. And then you've got Stanford, USC is not going to be close. Should make Tim happy because I'm thinking USC is going to win big. Those last two games are sneaky, though. Really, really sneaky. Auburn, Cal, Oklahoma State, Arizona State. I don't know what Mike meant when he was talking about Justin Wilcox has them at 6-6, 7-5. I don't really understand. They've never been that good, hardly ever. His record's like 20. It's like Neil Brown's. It's below 500 by a little bit, something like that. But I am going to watch that game probably as much of it as possible before I probably have to hit the bed. But that is going to be a good game. And I think that Cal could win. Like you said, I feel like Cal has a shot. It's not crazy, but Auburn's still the better team. And even though I did see a stat on Twitter that said that in the last 11 games that the SEC has went to out west to play a Pac-12 team, and like California out west, whatever, they're 1-10. They're 1-10 in the last 11 games. So that means that Auburn would actually be breaking the mold here. But see, a lot of those teams go out and play USC and they play UCLA, teams like that. This is Cal. So Auburn beating Cal is not crazy.
Ole Miss went out to Cal a couple years ago, so I think that's one of those. Ole Miss and Cal played a home and home, and they played two very close games about 4 or 5 years ago. Tennessee went to Oregon when Tennessee was down, and Oregon was Chip Kelly, Oregon. So I know that was one of those games. Of course, LSU went to UCLA in 2020.
That was a good game.
I think it was right after the it was right after the national championship season, and that was a good game. And Zach Charbonnet went off, and those are the games that come to mind. I know Auburn, the last time I believe they hit the West Coast, they played a great USC team and got blown out.
Yeah, I was surprised by that stat though. But the more that you look, like you said, the teams that those SEC teams traveled to play, it makes sense why they are 1-10. But I think Auburn will win, but I wouldn't be shocked with Cal winning. And same with Oklahoma State, Arizona State. I got Oklahoma State by about 7 as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona State won. But I really like this weekend. There's a lot of underrated games. Yes, you've got that marquee game with Texas Bama, and there's a couple other solid games. But this is a really good weekend, and I'm looking forward to watching them all, as many of these games as possible. Arizona, Mississippi State, that last one as well. I got Mississippi State. I don't see Arizona pulling that one off either. Could be done, but not like Will Rogers is too good, I think.
Yeah,
but,
I just think Mississippi State's considerably better than Arizona. Not that it's going to be a blowout.
They're a lot better of a team.
Yes, they're more athletic. They've got more NFL players. They've got a ton of defensive production coming back. And as you mentioned, they've got Will Rogers. Yeah, I don't see that being. Again, I'm not saying it's going to be 55-3, but I think that's going to be a 38-21 game, something
that's
like
what
that.
I see. It's like 14 to 21 point win. Yeah. Like for me, like if this was UCLA at Mississippi State, like that would be a type game where you're like, okay, I'm still probably would lean Mississippi State, but it would be a lot closer, be very, very close on who to pick. But Arizona's just not on that level. But yeah, again, tons of great games, and if I can, I'll definitely call back in tonight because it's already Saturday and talk about these games. Definitely looking forward to them.
I will be here following the primetime window, so you are always welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And, yeah, definitely have to bask in the Indiana win because it's not going to last, very long. Maybe there'll be Louisville, who knows, but we'll see if I can have some little, bask in the Alabama win tomorrow or today. See, I don't know, but
yes, we definitely need to see that Indiana hat more often.
Yeah, the more you see the Indiana hat, and probably means that Tom Allen is not getting fired, which will make me happy.
Very nice. Thanks, Jeffrey.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Before we get to our final call, do want to remind everyone, and I should be a better promoter of the fine merchandise here. I need to get my next order. Is what I need to do. I got myself a hoodie, which I don't wear hoodies. Don't like them. I never, if I have a hoodie on, it means I'm cold and everything's dirty because I don't like hoodies. I don't like the feel of the hood on the back of my back and neck. I just wear a sweatshirt. I don't like hoodies. But a lot of people like hoodies. So I do have the hoodie. I've got a polo. I've got actually 2 polos, and I'm really into, you may have noticed, just plain shirts like black, red, gray, white. So I've got a black polo that I like, and I believe a red polo. The other one is a kind of a multi-color that a lot of people might like, but I just don't necessarily wear that. And then we've got the 2 jackets that I like that you'll be seeing here very soon as the temperature drops sometime here in the next month. You'll start to see the jacket come out from time to time. The top 25 that actually makes sense, and then our other Voice of College Football. So check out the merch there. It's some really good stuff. And let's take a quick look. Look at the shoes. I'll have to check with Joey to see if we've sold any shoes. I don't believe we have yet. But we have gotten rave reviews on everything. Everyone has said the merchandise is quality. Everything's great. We love it. Got it on time. You got your top 25 that actually makes sense. You got your keychain for $4.99. You got a mug there. You can sip your favorite hot beverage there. On and on. There you go. All right. Let's talk some Michigan football. I'm guessing here. Welcome to the Voice of College Football tonight.
Hey, what's up, man? Look, man, I gotta come in here and settle people down with this Indiana talk, man. That team they played isn't only bad; it's a borderline high school team.
Well, we all know that. We're just
Yeah, I know, but I'm just like, whoa, guy. I mean, in the comment section, I'm like, guys, let's take a chill pill. Let's calm down. The only wins they had last year were against a 0-11 FCS team, and an overtime win against a 1-10 other FCS team within their own conference. Other than that, they got blown out on the regular by the same score Indiana blew them out tonight in their own conference. But let's calm down.
I have not seen the comments in the chat, but this is what I'm guessing. I'm guessing that people are kidding. I hope that they're kidding.
Yeah, I would hope so too, man. I was saying that this makes Indiana a top 25 team. I'm just like, whoa. I'm just like, man. Yeah, I think Iowa from last year could have scored 100 on that team. Anyways, besides the point. Hey man, I'm excited for tomorrow, man, for this Alabama-Texas game, man. I think it's gonna be I don't know which way to go, man, because Milroe showed some things that I hadn't seen last year. We'll see if that translates. I really don't know. Have you picked that game yet?
I have not picked that game yet.
Are you when you coming out with that?
Well, I'm coming out with my picks as soon as we get off of here. My picks are on Patreon. I got to honor those Patreon folks. So
I'm on there.
They get my picks.
Yeah, I'm on there. So I'll check it out.
16-8 against the spread, everyone. Sign up on Patreon or YouTube membership, either one. We want to give the same benefits to everyone. So, yeah, I'm going to go through my picks as soon as we get off here. So I'm going to post those.
I think I'm going to go with Texas, man. I'm going to go against the grain. Even though my gut is telling me Bama. My gut's telling me Bama. I think Milroe. He gave me some Jalen Hurts vibes. Not as as much of a he's not as much of a long strider, but he's got that like threat of he could take off at any moment and do something with his legs. And he could throw over. He showed he could throw over the top. So my gut's telling me Bama. Some of my gut is, but I would like to see Texas win that game.
I think it would make things a little more interesting in college football if Texas won that game. And it might make all those SEC fans sweat a little bit more about how good their conference is this year, since we saw them lose 3 big games last week.
Oh yeah, that is crazy, man. I mean, that is crazy. What'd you think about that Kansas game tonight?
I got to say, I was slightly surprised. I did think the entire offseason, I did think that Kansas was going to win the game, and they just have superior offensive personnel. They've got the better quarterback. They have a top 10 or 15 quarterback in college football, but man, they looked so much more athletic and quicker and they just did more things on offense. Illinois is very vanilla on offense. I know that it's their calling card. Brett Bielema is going to run that team like their 2010 Wisconsin. But yeah, Kansas was just too quick, too athletic, and had too much of a diverse offense and a better quarterback.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be interesting. You think Illinois is gonna take a big step back this year?
No.
You think
I
they're still
still
gonna be
think-
competitive?
Yeah, they'll still be able to step in the division and compete. I picked them 7-5.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, the West is the battle of the mid over there. So who knows who comes out of that? Oh yeah, I mean there ain't too much going. I'm ready for some football, man. I mean Michigan. Although one last thing I think I want to talk about is I think people when we talk about like this team beat this nobody team by this score, I think people got to like. I don't know if this is a frustration you have, but I feel like people look too much at the score and not how the game is played.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, especially
I know what you're saying. Yes.
especially with these new clock rules, right? Teams that like to, control the ball, not go for the big things like that. I mean, you're going to see, like, Michigan's example, 30-3. People are like, oh man, 30-3. I'm like, guys, Michigan is not a team, and they've really always been like this, but especially with the new clock rule, that's how they want to play. Like the press conference this week, they were asked about that. They're like, no, we like that. We like being able to, just move the chains, control the clock, and score, on every possession. If it takes 8 minutes to do that, that's what we want to do. So, like, I think people need to stop looking at, oh, they won this game 33.
Yes.
Oregon won this game 80-some to whatever. Like
Michigan's not concerned whether it's 30-3 or 45-3 or 50-3. It's all the same to them.
And I think Ohio State's similar in some ways.
Well, they were on Saturday against Indiana. I think the quarterback had a lot to do with that. But Ryan Day made the statement, and this shouldn't surprise anyone. He made the statement on Monday or Tuesday at the news conference. He may have said this actually after the game, that Ohio State wants to rush for 250 yards, pass for 300 yards, and score 50 points every game.
Yeah, is he the play caller? Is Ryan Day calling the plays?
Yeah, he's still calling the plays. Yes,
because there's no way in my mind that Hardline wants to run that type of offense if he's a wide receiver guy. But that's just me. But he seems like a guy that would want to use the guys he recruited. But Ryan Day's one of the greatest play callers we've seen. So I mean, I wouldn't have nothing against him calling the plays anyway.
Yeah, I think he very much saw that they're not going to score against us. We can't lose unless we screw it up. And so let's play conservatively. I'll see Kyle McCord throw. I think he threw 20, whatever he threw. He still threw 33 passes. So he got to see him throw 33 passes, even though they played conservatively. And we're just going to open it up a little bit more each week. And Notre Dame's not going to see a large portion of our offense.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good strategy. I think the bigger talk about that game should be Indiana. It turns out they really just played like cowards, man. You look at how they played tonight, completely different offense. They played a normal offense tonight. Like, what were they doing?
Yeah, it's pretty sad that they, I guess, think that they lost, quote unquote, impressively 23-3. And why wouldn't you go for it and try to pull off a major upset? You lose 23-3, you lose 42-3. Big deal.
Yeah, it feels like Tom Allen was like, my job's really on the line. Let me make this. Let me play not to lose here, even though I'm playing to lose. But let me play in a way that I can, make it look better than it could potentially look. And to me, that's a fireable offense on its own right there.
Yeah,
like,
because
what are you telling your team?
near the end of the first half, he got kind of lucky because Ohio State, Carnell Tate dropped a pass down near the 2-yard line, and they could have punched it in for a touchdown. Anyway, they kicked a field goal. So the game was only 7-3 with about a minute left in the first half. So I think that's where maybe Tom Allen didn't necessarily full on have that approach going into the game. But once he got into this game of, oh, they don't have the offense they usually do, and they're not going to play like that, I can kind of nurse home a loss where maybe he was hoping it was going to be more like 13-3. And
yeah. Well, not only that, though, I mean, the game tonight, they weren't running this option thing that they were doing. They were running a normal offense. So I like it really feels like this dude went into the game. He's like, oh, this is the first game of the year. I'm probably going to get fired. Let me see if I can save my job and try this option offense and make it look better.
The thing is when you go into a season opener, you've got the entire – so coaches, they understand where their team is and what their team's capable of and who they're playing. So as you well know, Texas and Alabama are gearing up the entire summer for week 2, and they're just making it through week 1, figuring out, okay, what should we try? What do we need to look at? What do we need to work on? What are we not going to put out there because we don't want Texas or Alabama to see it? But they're gearing up all summer and all August camp for week 2. Well, Indiana should be gearing up all off season and so forth for week 1 to take a shot at Ohio State. Well, if Tom Allen if he had them working on that option all August to spring that as a surprise on Ohio State.
Yeah, there's no way he thought that was going to win them the game. Being one-dimensional, and it wasn't even, and I look back at it, it wasn't even a true triple option. It was more a speed option.
Exactly. Anybody who said it was a triple option, they don't know what a triple option is, or they were just being lazy and just throwing out triple option. I may have said that one time, but I caught myself because, triple option is a fullback dive because that's the first option of a triple option. The second option is the pitch, and the third option is, of course, the keep by the quarterback. They didn't have a fullback dive on that play.
Yeah, I think I saw that they threw more in the first, or they threw more in the first half of this game tonight than they had in the first 3 quarters of the entire game against Ohio. Something crazy like that. And I'm just thinking, man, like if I don't know how I could play for a coach like that prepared us. Like I couldn't. I don't know, man. I think it's one of the most cowardly things I've ever seen. So I don't know. But hey, man, I'm excited. Let's watch these games tomorrow, man. You enjoy the rest of your night, all right?
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
And by the way, that is some great merchandise you got, man. Some great merchandise you got selling right there. I don't know who you got to make it, but it's some 5-star top quality stuff. It's competing with the best of the best. So
very nice.
You enjoy your night, man.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here. All right. Good stuff tonight. Had to go live here on a Friday night. We will do this each and every week as we go through the rest of the season. Sometimes we've got some decent games on a Friday night. Regardless, we'll be here talking college football with all of you. We want to be your last stop before, boom, Saturday morning on into the games. Great stuff. It starts at noon. I got to admit, I contemplated doing a Nebraska-Colorado watch party. I thought, let's do a Nebraska-Colorado watch party. A lot of hype surrounding Colorado, of course. And we've got a Nebraska channel that does fairly well. Let's go do that. But I thought Texas, Baylor, and Notre Dame, NC State. I want to be watching all these games because our typical approach on game day is that we go live with all of you at the end of all the games. I shouldn't say that. We're not going live at 2:00 in the morning after all the games. If we had enough hours in the day to do that, I would do that. I would watch every game, go all the way to Hawaii and whoever they're playing, Cal Poly, and watch the end of that game and then go live at 2:33 in the morning and then go live with all of you. But we know that we're going to get the most audience going prime time after the primetime games at roughly 11:30. So that's what we do. That's our big call-in wrap-up show on Saturday night. But throughout the day, I kind of survey the games and I respond to what happens, what's in front of me. If Colorado and Nebraska play an intriguing game, I'll knock out an instant analysis video. I'll do the same as I watch. I'm going to try to watch Utah, Baylor, Colorado and Nebraska, and North Carolina State, Notre Dame all at the same time. And unless something else catches my eye that becomes a more important game or more interesting, let's say Notre Dame's up 28-3 at halftime. Well, that kind of falls off the edge, and I look for something else that's more interesting. And we keep that up throughout the day, just kind of getting some of you informed on how we approach college football that have not been with us in the past. But I kind of do that throughout the day. If I deem something worthy of going live, let's say UNLV's leading Michigan 17-3 at half, I'll probably jump on here live with a what the hell's going on? Can you believe this kind of statement? Don't expect that to happen. But so we will be live throughout the day. We will certainly be live at 11:30 Eastern for the big wrap-up call-in show. And then, of course, again, we will provide all sorts of instant analysis. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Patreon folks and YouTube members, you're going to get my picks in just a few minutes. And the Discord link is going to be available for YouTube members as well. So we want you to be able to join either on Patreon or on YouTube and have the same membership. You don't need to join both of them. All right. Thank you so much for all that you guys do and keeping us going here at the Voice of College Football. We will see you Saturday throughout the day. Enjoy the games. It's a great slate of games. I am telling you. These are all the games, if it was humanly possible to watch all these games from start to finish without any interruptions by watching other games, I want to see Arizona, Mississippi State. I want to see Cal Auburn. I want to see Iowa, Iowa State. I want to see Baylor and Utah. Of course, I want to see Texas, Alabama. Of course, I want to see all sorts of games. There are about 15 games that I legitimately want to see. Notre Dame, NC State, of course. I want to see Tulane and Ole Miss. I want to see about 15 games, and I'll do my best to do just that. And then we'll wrap it all up here. And again, keep those notifications on to know when we go live, when we drop another video, because we'll do that all day on game day on Saturday. And we will see you then. Enjoy the night. Get some sleep. Get fired up. Get rested up. Fired up. Ready to come back. And we'll see you then.